0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to your second episode of the Phixated Podcast this week. I am your host, Mike Aslina, and I'm joined by a guy who was kind enough to do a second episode with me. I can't believe he's not tired of listening to me yet tonight. Regz, hi again.
Like the audience, I miss you when we miss episodes. I miss our chats and our conversation. I forgot to say this on the last episode, but happy birthday.
Oh, thanks, man.
No offense, but it always makes me happy that I'm the youngest of the group. It's a title. It's a title I wear proudly. Especially considering how old Stein is, it makes me smile when I think about it.
I totally get it.
But
I totally get it.
Happy birthday! I hope you had a great day.
Yeah, it was a good day.
Always, back to back with our buddy Ryan, of course, who is just the day after. But yeah. Always excited to talk to you, man. I get it. I start to get like an itch when we don't record and we don't get to talk about what's going on.
Yeah, last week it was just one of those weeks like we couldn't get it to work. How was bingo night?
It was great. She did awesome.
Yeah.
I don't go because I watch the kids. That's my job.
Yeah.
My job is to schlep things and get it in the car and then watch the kids. It's funny that I don't know. I'm sure I told this story like when we first had it, when she first did it a few years ago, but she puts so much time into it.
Yeah.
She literally, she reaches out to like thousands of like 1,000 businesses around here for donations and, giveaways. And our basement turns into just like this cascading ring of baskets and giveaways and bingo tickets and signs and all these things that she puts together. And she's so very good at, because she has such an attention to detail with all this stuff. But by all, and then the reason we couldn't record is because the week is a whirlwind. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's Thursday and my parents are here, graciously. They come down and hang out and my mom helps, with setup and dad hangs out with me and the boys. I'm like, yeah, crap. I can't really just be like, yeah, sorry, mom and dad, I'm gonna record a podcast for an hour, that you came down to hang out with us. But the funny part of it is that, a now friend of mine, the first time we got together was bingo. His wife was my oldest son Cole's kindergarten teacher.
Okay.
So through that, her and Angela, built a relationship, but the dad and I had never met. So it goes, first, second, then she becomes my middle son's kindergarten teacher. Okay. So at that point, 2 years ago, the wives start talking like, hey, we have bingo night coming up. We should have the husbands hang out because they have a son who's about Connor's age. Their older two are a little older than Cole, but, they can hang out and play video games and do whatever. They're close enough in age that they'll be fine. So they, we talk about it now, but they set up this, dad date for us on bingo night. And of course, my dad is there. And, Angela's like, oh, you'll be fine. He likes good beer. He likes Notre Dame. You guys will have plenty to talk about. It'll be great. And you're always like, all right, I can hang out with anybody for a few hours. It'll be fine. Even if it's weird, we'll get through it. Luckily it was great. He's a great guy. We have hung out many times since then. He has a great master's party that he throws every year that I participate in. We've, had plenty of little barbecues and things with the family. So it's been great. But we were texting before this and he's like, oh, it's our 2-year anniversary, of our first date. And so I had told Angela this, but I went to write back as if I'm replying to one of you guys. If one of you said oh, it's our anniversary, my first thought was to reply, oh, I'll be sure to wear something special for you. That was going to be my response to him. thinking it's just like one of you guys, you guys would of course find that funny, and it would reciprocate right back with something, very similar. And I went to type it, and then I was like, I deleted it quickly. I was like, we know each other, and we're, I would consider him a friend. I was like, I'm not sure we were ready for that. Might not have been enough time.
Maybe not that level. That's so good.
So it was just it was just really funny that I literally had it typed. I was about to press the send button on the text. And then I was like, well, let's dial it back just a little bit, Chris. Let's dial it back just a little bit.
How many times I go to say something to someone, like I have it typed down and I think it's hilarious. I'm like, might not impact them the way you're hoping, Mike. Right? Like, maybe this is, think about your audience. Moment. So I hear you entirely.
Yeah.
Like I'm right there with you. That's I feel like we've all experienced that. So I do want you to send that to him at some point, though.
At some point I will. Maybe for our 3rd anniversary. Maybe that's the time.
Maybe your third anniversary feels like the right time to do that, for sure.
I mean, but shout out to him. He is a Notre Dame fan.
There you go.
And follows closely. So we've, watched a few Notre Dame games together. He grew up around Pittsburgh, so he is a Pirates and Steelers fan, which isn't that big, not that big of a deal. But
that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. We know plenty of.
It was just very funny that my instant reaction was like, oh, I'm just replying to a message from like Azzy or Fairbanks. Yeah. And that's exactly what I would say.
You send that to me, and I'm going to send you all kinds of weird gifts.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So no doubt, I get it. All right, man. Let's jump in here. We got a lot of Eagles talk. So this is part of the reason why we decided to do 2 episodes, because when we decided, all right, it's not going to work this weekend, I thought maybe we'll just pick up an episode later. But because so much has happened, there was no way to get it all into one episode. We would have been on for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Between the Joel Embiid news, all the Phillies stuff at spring training, and all the Eagles stuff, there's just no way. So we figured we'll do a separate Eagles episode. So here we are, and I want to start with what I didn't plan on starting with when I woke up this morning. When I woke up this morning, the plan was the Darius Slay news.
Yeah.
And then midday, it was Darius Slay and James Bradberry, even though we don't James Bradberry, whatever. But now, those will take a backseat. We will talk about them because there's the Saquon Barkley extension.
Yeah.
Around 3:00 today, it was announced that Saquon Barkley received a 2-year, $40 million extension with $36 million paid the moment the ink hits the paper. And it makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history, which is fair, considering what he did this year. He is being paid for the success that he had. There's a couple of things that are important to note. This saves the Eagles nearly $8 million in cap space right now. They can get out of it in 2027 with almost no penalty at all. Might be 28. I have to look back. I feel like it's changed a couple of times, but they'll be able to reallocate things when the time comes. Salary cap doesn't worry me as long as Howie Roseman's in charge. Period. Lastly, there's simply no secret as to why this happened right now. They did this the week before free agency to show agents and free agents what happens when you show good faith in the Eagles organization and you produce. Because his guaranteed money this year was like $1.5 million. That was it. And what the Eagles did was, in good faith, say, you performed, here's the extension. Here's all of this money right now because of what you did. And there are agents around the league looking at this, and there are free agents, and there are guys on the trade block that look at this and say, I want to go there because of the way they treat their players. Because you look at a team like the Bengals, who refuse to extend their very talented wide receiver in T. Higgins, and just continue to piss him off by tagging him. 2 players got a franchise tag. 2, that's it. And he's one. But this just goes to show what really good ownership does. This is really good ownership. And I know that there are people who are a little nervous about the extension, but I think let's not forget that, like, they can find a way out of it if they have to. His 300 touches this year were not strenuous touches. He was rarely tackled in a way that made me nervous.
Yeah.
He was rarely touched until the second level. And as long as they have some form of this offensive line in front of him, he should be fine.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things I heard about this was Zach Berman on the PHLY show. They did like a quick 6-minute video on this because it happened after their main pod had finished recording.
I'll listen to it tomorrow.
And Zach said, what this does is keep Saquon Barkley happy. He's like, because what if next year's the main focus is on the passing game?
Yeah.
And Saquon Barkley isn't going to get 300 touches. You know? Like, what if that's what I mean. He was obviously saying hypothetically, but he was just like, this allows them to potentially shift a lot of their focus to the passing game, which we know Lurie likes to be on the cutting edge of. Like, as a owner, he wants his team to reflect like the cutting edge of offense and the passing game specifically. Now look, they did what they had to do this year and they won the Super Bowl. So you can't fault them for leaning into what Saquon was able to give them. This was in the top 1% of outcomes that could have happened after signing Saquon Barkley. Like, look, we have to understand the reality. Like, Saquon Barkley might not win another Super Bowl with the Eagles, but he did it. He put together the 1% season and won this city a Super Bowl, literally on his legs, like on his back and his shoulders and his legs. So I just thought it was a very interesting point that I had heard no one else say. And again, we don't know if that's going to happen. And again, I think you can have your thoughts about like, well, you know, isn't there more important things you could spend the cash on? You know, are there other places that are more important than re-signing the running back, you know, that you already paid sort of at the top of the market when you signed him here in the first place, blah, blah, blah. I think it's a great point to say that he's the first offensive player of the year in franchise history. He set the all-time rushing yard record for a full season, including playoffs, in NFL history. He's the first running back for the Eagles to go over 2,000 yards. He's like, to your point, it's not a bad precedent to say, if you perform like this, you will be paid by this franchise.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the worst thing to do. Again, we'll see how the rest of this plays out. We'll see what they want to do, but I can't imagine that with this franchise and how they usually handle these things, that every scenario wasn't thought about before this actually happened.
Yes. And to the Zach Berman point, it also wouldn't shock me even if they don't turn fully to the passing game, if they bring in a veteran type of backup, or they draft to have some more fresh legs with Shipley. I know they just spent a 4th round pick, but it doesn't preclude them from grabbing another guy.
And this is the deep running back draft.
Yeah, where you can have 2 young horses behind him.
Yep.
To knock down some of those carries.
And preserve, try and ride this out as long as possible.
Yeah, instead of 300 touches, he gets, just under 200 touches next year. But it does keep him at bay and not frustrated. I didn't think about that. It's a good point. Let me, and I do think it also a couple of other guys who we could see get extensions here in the next week or so before free agency takes course. Lane Johnson
Yes.
could get like a restructure or extension type of thing. Jalen Hurts could get his like Pat Mahomes deal here, and move some money around to add, because after this move and the Slay Bradbury stuff that we're going to touch on here in a moment, they're at about 30 million in cap space.
Yeah.
And another guy, Cam Jurgens, is also going to get an extension.
Yeah.
So, with his extension, if they do move some money around with Lane and they move money and extend Jalen, then there's a chance that they could be looking at like $45-50 million in cap space, which is just Howie being a freaking magician.
Can I ask you, I'm not trying to put a damper on this. I'm not mad about it. I'm not upset about what they're doing. But I think you have to look at the other side of this. Like, in your mind, what are the concerns? What are the not red flags, but like, what do you think of when you see this and maybe you're like, ooh, what gave you like that, like maybe little ooh moment
with Saquon?
Yes.
I think it's what everybody thinks is like running back shelf life, and how long can he do what he's doing? And look, he's gonna. I think the bulk of the deal takes him through his age 31 season. So I think it's how much are you planning on leaning on him when that's happening? And I don't know that they will. The Eagles have never been a one running back team until this year. Well, that's not true. Never as strong. Right. But over the last, since Shady left, they've not been a one running back team. Their last Super Bowl was Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, and Corey Clement. When they got to the Super Bowl a few years back, it was Miles Sanders, Boston Scott.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been the one horse race until Saquon got here. From Shady to Saquon, it's always been a mixed bag. And I think what you said about winning that Super Bowl could potentially have them pull the reins back a little bit more and focus on some younger guys. Maybe even give Saquon some weeks here and there. The schedule doesn't necessarily allow for it. It's a tough schedule next year. But I think my number one concern is simply just the shelf life of a guy who had a lot of touches at Penn State, has a lot of touches in his first year
and
here,
has been injured. Like, is not immune to the injury bug.
Yeah. Now, again, bad offensive line in New York.
Sure.
Shitty playing surface. All that stuff plays into that.
Absolutely.
He was remarkably, knock on wood, healthy this year.
Yes.
And we can say for whatever reason, but mostly for me, it's when you've got an offensive line like that in front of you, you're out there. You're not getting hit the same way. So I don't think I have some fancy answer.
No, that's okay.
I think it's just what you worry about with any high profile type running back who's got a lot of tread on the tires.
Mm-hmm.
It's that. It's how long can he do this for? And let me ask this. I'll ask you this. I'll turn it around. If you have anything else to add, please do. But in addition to that, if he gives you another 2 years of 170 touches, so 2 years of 170 touches, and then the third year is like 100 touches, where he's more like the second back, split with two other guys, and you win one more Super Bowl with him being the bell cow. Worth it?
Yes.
At $20 million a year?
Yes.
I agree.
And I think
even if you only get one more year of 175 carries and you get another Super Bowl.
And I do think a part of this, quite honestly, is I think they're paying to have Saquon Barkley the leader on this football team for as long as possible.
Money is more than just what's on the field.
Because I think
you heard what they said about him.
Right. That's exactly right. You heard in the mic'd up what Jalen said, what the running backs coach said, what Nick
Great
said, what
point.
Howie said, what Lori
Right.
said. Like, you don't think even if he's getting half as many touches, they don't want that guy like showing the next few running backs to be on this team what it
Fantastic.
is to be a teammate or being that centering light in that locker room, you know, that leader in that locker room. Like, that's a part of this 1,000%.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. This contract is not just about the what he did on the field. This contract is about what he presents them from a leadership standpoint. Fantastic.
And just think about what Jalen said. Just think about what
Yeah.
Jalen said in that video.
You were the missing piece. Yeah. You're the missing
Like,
piece.
coming off the season that was a year ago,
A nightmare.
no
Yep,
one
a
was in
nightmare.
that building that could correct it. No one.
Yep.
And I like, you heard, we don't have to like guess. They said it. These guys view Saquon as that guy.
Yeah.
That maybe if he's on that team, it doesn't go that way.
Right.
So I think I have to believe that's a big part of this.
It's a great point. And you know, while his leadership is back, the cornerback room took a leadership, the defensive back room, I should say,
Yeah.
and the locker room as a whole
Yeah.
took a little bit of a shot. And I don't just mean Darius Slay. I think James Bradberry deserves a shout here too. A guy who tore his Achilles and was sitting in the background most of this year, but helping the younger guys out and you know, creating a space for his own leadership in the locker room. But over the last 2 days, both guys have been released. They will be post June 1 designated. I'm not counting out a Slay return. I think it's unlikely. I put it at less than 25% that he's back. I think they are going to turn this over to the younger guys. And we already talked about the money, so I don't need to go back there. Darius Slay was playing at a really high level this year.
Yeah.
But he is going to be what,
33,
32, 33, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you can lean on that type of play. The Eagles have been burnt before with that loyalty. And I don't want to see it happen again. This happened to them with guys coming off of the 2017-18 Super Bowl season. And they were loyal to some of those guys, and it ended up burning them. And I don't want that. It hurts to see Darius Slay go. I think he's probably the best corner we've seen in over a decade. His career started slow in Philly, but he's been phenomenal since the 21 season. He's been one of the best corners we've ever seen in Midnight Green. So you said it yesterday. I'll leave it to you. There's another layer to this that I think matters. But they're turning it over, man. They're turning it over, and we'll talk about in what way. I do want to give you a chance to talk about Slay, Bradberry, if you want. But they're turning the page for sure.
Yeah. I think as I've thought about this more and more, I think you have to agree with the process here. It's a 33-year-old cornerback. You have the guys in the building that I think you can believe in, and the defensive coordinator that you can believe in. I take nothing away from how Darius Slay played this year. Phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who said it, but somebody said it really well. It might have been Shield on the Ringer, the Philly special, but he's like, Zach Bond doesn't have the season he has if Quinyon and Slay aren't as good as they are. Cooper doesn't have the season he has if Quinyon and Slay don't play the way they play.
Right.
Go down the line. CJ doesn't have the season he has.
Another one who might get an extension.
If Quinyon and Slay don't play the way they play. A huge part of this defense is having guys on the outside who can do it all, who can cover in space, who can stick with guys going downfield, who can make plays on the ball, who can just be sticky to guys. And that's what Quinion and Slay were this year. He broke the mold for these over 30 corners. He played one of the best seasons he's ever played, and he got rewarded, and the team got rewarded with a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like the process, like you talked about, and built in like the team moving forward, it's not a terrible process to look at a 33-year-old cornerback, you know, with the guys they have in the room, and just be like, thank you for your service. Yeah. You've been phenomenal, but this is just what we have to do from a team perspective.
It's business. Yeah. It sucks because you get so tied to these guys, and they get tied to the city.
Yeah.
You know, he has said, I really, you know, I only want to be in one of two places. I don't know what Detroit's situation is going to be. Because, you know, they're always looking for defensive backs, but I don't know where he fits. I'll say this. He'll retire an Eagle. You know, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. I really don't.
Right.
But he's going to retire an Eagle, and he'll be an Eagle Hall of Famer. He'll be in the Eagles Hall of Fame for sure. It's tough, but it is time to look at they've spent heavy in the draft over the last couple of seasons at the position, which kind of leads me to this. You know, Vic Fangio has said that they believe Cooper DeJean can play on the outside. I can see a world where when they're in base, which they only do like a handful of times a game, that Cooper is on the outside. But I wonder, do they trust Keely Ringo? Will they bring Isaiah Rodgers back to compete with Keely Ringo? Will they draft a slot corner in the 4th or 5th round to, you know, kind of compete? It'll be like Ringo versus that kid to see who, you know, where Cooper doesn't play, essentially. I do believe Cooper can play on the outside. I also believe don't fix what's not broken. And he was such a difference maker in the slot and is such a Swiss Army knife that I don't necessarily want to see him on the outside. A lot of people like Keely Ringo. They like what he brought. They like what he's capable of. He's had 2 years to learn under Darius Slay. AJ Brown is very complimentary of Keely Ringo. So I'm curious to see what they do here. Will they bring Rodgers back? Will they? And we're going to talk about that. But here's one thing we can say. They're not at a loss for depth right now. Yeah. They absolutely have the depth. They have 3 guys that we're talking about that can play on the outside, which is great. I think they're going to want to add 1 or 2 in the draft and, you know, potentially in free agency. But they do have pieces in play. They have chess pieces in play. Yeah. So I don't, you know, do you have any thoughts you want to add to that?
I mean, the last thing, possibly controversial, I am firmly in the camp of I do not want Cooper DeJean playing on the outside.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think I'm tied to it.
I love Coop. I love his ability to be like that third linebacker out there and just be in space. I don't know if he has what it takes to keep up with the caliber of outside wide receivers that we face in this league. You know, even in the East, like CeeDee Lamb will find Cooper DeJean every time. And I know, like with Fangio's defense, I get it. They try and mitigate that a lot.
Lamb plays a lot of the slot too.
But
move him around.
I'm firmly in the camp of like, if it ain't broke, let's not try and like over-engineer this. I think that does make that one outside position weaker for the time being until we see somebody step up and play. You know, to the level that we would expect out there. And I'm firmly with you that it has to be a competition out there. You can't just give Keely Ringo the spot. It has to, and I do also believe that you need to bring in a veteran who can help with the leadership of that room.
There are plenty of 1-year types out there that I didn't put any down, but I fully believe.
I just think that's the Slay and Bradbury part of this, the leadership that they were able to show to this group of young guys.
Yeah.
Can't be overstated, I don't think, especially Slay's contribution to it.
Right.
And, you know, luckily it looks like they're probably going to retain that secondary coach who was fantastic with the young
Yes.
guys. But I think you got to have a veteran in there, even somebody who's
Yeah.
maybe played for Vic before, somebody who can come in and, continue to help coach these guys and be a leader in that room.
I am pulling it up. I didn't write any down, but I do want to just pull up the list of corners that are free agents this year, maybe, if it lets me. I can keep playing with it if it's not going to let me do it real quick. Here we go. View free agents. Here we go. Okay. So I thought about this earlier because I was like, who can they grab that all right, never mind, it's not working. Well, I'll try and pull it up as we go here.
I think probably the biggest one is Jair Alexander from Green Bay, right?
Yeah. I don't see him as a 1-year deal though.
No, for sure. I just meant in terms of free agents that are.
Yeah.
You're right. That's not a 1-year
deal.
So, yeah.
I'm more so considering those 1-year type guys that you can bring in to steal. Carlton Davis is a free agent, Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, Byron Murphy. Is Sante Samuel Jr. a free agent already?
Interesting.
Christian Fulton, Nate Hobbs, Jordan Lewis, Gilmore, Russell Douglas. You could bring him back. So there are plenty of guys that, you could. Kendall Fuller. Oh, he didn't play with Fangio. He's one and done. But there are plenty of guys that you can go and grab from a 1-year perspective that can come in and do exactly what you're talking about, which is challenge Ringo. And if he doesn't earn it, then you got this 1-year type. And there's some of these guys are still playing for contracts, right? So Ward would be interesting to me. He was fantastic in 24, but then unfortunately lost his daughter.
Right.
And it's talked about wanting to get away from the West Coast. No better way than moving all the way across the country.
Yeah.
And playing for the defending Super Bowl champions, right? So interesting guy to keep an eye on. 29 years old. Interesting. Okay. How do you want to do this? You want me to go through, since we already kind of started, you want me to talk through potential free agents that they could bring on board and then go through our guys?
Let's go through our guys first. Let's start with our guys.
All right. So we're going to do a stay or go, and I do have literally everybody.
Got it.
Okay. So we'll both do a stay or go and then keep going. So we're gonna start with Eagle great LaRaven Clark.
Who?
Offensive lineman LaRaven Clark.
I really don't know who that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna put go. I don't see a world. They seem to love him though.
Is there a who cares option?
Nice. All right. How about Nick Gates?
Go.
Yeah, same. I don't envision him coming back. All right, how about Driscoll? The guy that disappears but then reappears.
Who cares?
Yeah, he's a go for me too. I feel like we're just gonna find all new offensive line. Here you go, Mekhi Becton.
Am I saying what I want to happen or what I think will happen?
What you think happens.
Go.
I think we both want him to stay.
Yeah, go. I think he goes.
But I think he's just going to get a bag, and
I just don't think he's worth that much more than Tyler Steen.
Well, Tyler Steen or replacement level.
Yes, right.
To me, it's like he's going to get like a $10 million per year offer. You can't pay all 5 guys on the offensive line at top of the market. You can't do that. And I think Howie knows that, and he knows that they can, either Tyler Steen can play there, or I do have a name that I absolutely love and would.
They're going to draft too.
They are, for sure. All right, Fred Johnson.
Stay.
Yeah, I think they have to.
Yeah.
I think they have to. I think he's the perfect swing tackle for them. He played really well when they needed him to. Kenny Gainwell.
Go. I think with the new
Yep.
Saquon news, I think it's a go.
Yeah. And I do think, you know, they like what they drafted in Will Shipley.
Yeah.
I think they'll either draft or they'll find a running back in the scrap heap that can come and take carries. Okay. TJ Uzoma.
Go.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. So this is a restricted free agent. I'll say him anyway. Britton Covey.
Stay, I guess.
I think so. I think they need him to return.
Yeah, I don't think you want Coop taking that kind of beating all the time.
They don't want Coop back there.
Like throw him out there if it's like really important, you know, and like you got to have something, but I don't think they want him doing that.
I mean, even so, Covey.
He's been fine.
When he was healthy, he would get you something.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't, for some reason, couldn't get healthy this year. I felt terrible for him.
Yeah.
All right. How about Campbell?
Go.
I have him as a stay.
Interesting.
I do think that he played in the Super Bowl. Like he got legit snaps in the Super Bowl. I think they like what Paris Campbell brings from a depth perspective. Otherwise, Aeneas Smith is like your fifth receiver.
Yeah, I also feel like they could find somebody to just.
I don't know you're gonna find anything cheaper than Paris Campbell.
That's maybe true.
So okay. I mean, there's some guys. I don't know. I think that's yeah. All right, let's jump over to the defensive side. Avonte Maddox.
Go.
Yeah. And look, Avonte was good for a long time here. He really was.
He's just not anymore.
No. Although another big play in the Super Bowl, by the way. All right, how about this one? I was gonna save it, but we'll do it now. Brandon Graham.
Go, but retired.
Yeah. Well, he's not playing anywhere else. Yeah. I'm gonna say go. This is one where I'm on the fence though. Like I do believe, depending on if they can get a veteran, like they're gonna need to get at least one edge and one defensive tackle before the draft.
Yeah.
Like they have to. They have to. Okay. I think we'll do some obvious ones here. Milton Williams.
Unfortunately, go. God, I'd love to keep him around, but
yeah, me too. It's just not
possible.
He has made it very clear.
And it's a really deep D tackle draft. Like they're gonna.
And there's some defensive tackles already that have been released that I think could make a difference. Josh Sweat.
Go.
Yeah. Oren Burks.
Stay.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay too.
Considering the Dean situation.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay too. I think he likes it here.
I agree. And I think to his credit, he played pretty well in the Super Bowl and the playoffs.
Well the entire time.
Like to the point that like if we're just comparing it to like Nicholas Moreau and Oren Burks, like Oren Burks greatly outplayed Moreau.
Yeah.
So
Yep. He might get a better deal elsewhere, but some of these guys I think are going to say, all right, I've been other places.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Right.
You know, and that is one thing that has me holding on to like Mekhi Becton. Like, this is a dude who experienced the worst of the worst.
Right.
And then experienced the best of the best.
Yeah.
And, you know, well, I don't know. All right. Final two. Isaiah Rodgers.
This is where I don't know what they're going to do. My hope is stay.
I think it's stay. I think this is one. I don't think his market is going to be. He didn't play enough to have a big market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Eagles might be able to convince him that if he comes back, competes, and wins on a 1-year deal, that next year he'll have the market.
Since he'll be playing that much more.
Right. And he's going to have the opportunity to win the job.
Yeah.
Last year, he wasn't winning the job.
Right.
I mean, it was, at first, he didn't have a choice. He was just taken by them.
Right.
But, when he got into camp, it was pretty clear. When he played this year, he was fine.
Yes.
I don't know that there are going to be teams knocking down the door to pay him starting corner money, right?
Right.
So he's comfortable. I think he stays. All right, last one. Zach Bond.
Stay.
I think this is where they pay.
I think this is their priority. All the news coming out of the combine is that Zach Bond is the Eagles' priority.
Yes. And as well he should be, right? As well he should be. So if we get to look, the only two offensive guys we both have or that we have staying, we both have Fred Johnson, we both have Britton Covey, and I have Paris Campbell. I don't think we're too worried there because for the most part, everybody's back, right? 10 of 11 guys are back. If you return Zach Bond, Oren Burks, and Isaiah Rodgers from last year's defense, but not Josh Sweat, not Milton Williams, not Brandon Graham, just on face value, before we get into the other guys who could come on board, how are you feeling knowing that your defense is Isaiah Rodgers, your defensive backfield is Reed Blankenship, CJGJ, Isaiah Rodgers, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell. Your linebackers are Oren Burks and Zach Bond. And then your front four, as of the moment, is, as of this moment, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, and Jalix Hunt. What would you say as of this moment? That's your starting, basically your starting 11. On a scale of 1 to 10.
I'm saying that it's not the number one defense in the league. Do I think it can still be a top 10 defense? Absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason is Zach Bond is back.
I think yes, right? I'd say my feeling going into the season, if we're saying today that's going to be your starting 11, I'm probably at a 7, which is fine because I agree with you. It's still a top 10 to 15 defense, and with their offense, that should be good enough.
Right.
So let's talk through some guys to keep an eye on. From an outside perspective, and I'm going to start with the guard position. I do agree with you that I think Tyler Steen will have the opportunity to win the job, but a guy I'd keep an eye on is a dude who started quite a few games for the San Francisco 49ers, former Notre Dame offensive lineman Aaron Banks. And this is a guy who I think, makes a lot of sense. He's a big dude. He is very strong, very good offensive lineman. I think Stoutland could totally turn his career around just like he did here with Mekhi Becton. Could be a 1-year deal, come in, compete with Steen. Whether he wins it or loses it, you have a guy who can play both guard positions. He can, in an emergency, play center. So they do have, that's a guy just to keep your eye on from an offensive guard perspective. Aaron Banks, keep that one in mind. Let's talk about the edge position, because we've already said that they need to sign an edge and a defensive tackle. So I'll go edge, and then I'm going to go back to the offensive side of the ball. Some names to keep an eye on from the edge. I think Ojulari from the Giants is a guy that they could take a look at. He's the type. He's Howie's type, like a top pick. Didn't quite pan out one place. Get him on a cheap deal. Let him dominate in Philly and move along. That's the Adam Ojulari is one that I think could work for them. Then there's like veterans like Khalil Mack, who at the end of his career he's made his money. Would he be willing to take a cheap deal to come and try and ring chase in Philly? Type of guy that they could absolutely take a look at. I would love to have Khalil Mack in Philly, but they're partly because they need a veteran presence too. They're losing Brandon Graham, right? They're losing Josh Sweat. They're going to need some veteran presence in that defensive room. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Baron Browning is a dude who's played for Vic Fangio before. Would make a ton of sense to come in here and be an edge for the Eagles. So those are three names that I'd say keep an eye on from a free agency perspective. I'm still very convinced that Myles Garrett could be an Eagle, especially after today. I just believe that they are very much in play for Myles Garrett. Your window is open. You can add a guy like him, and then add a guy. Maybe Khalil Mack would say, "Yeah, I'll come over for basically nothing to try and ring chase, right? Like I'll come over and do that." Or that's when you draft one in this draft. You draft one. I don't know, man. I have just such a weird feeling about it. Let me move back to the offensive side because I don't know what they're going to do with Dallas Goedert yet. That's another dude you have to keep an eye on with the contract. If they decide to move on from Dallas Goedert, they're going to need a tight end, and I know they'll draft one, but I think they need to have one on the board too, because you don't want to just go into the year with Calcaterra and another rookie. So someone to consider, and I'd be interested to see if they could make a Bryce Huff trade here. Send him to Vegas and bring back my guy Michael Mayer, the former Notre Dame tight end.
Yeah.
I wanted him when he was being drafted. I want him now. I think a change of scenery would be great for him. He's not going to see as many balls in Vegas because, that other guy is pretty good. I don't know if you ever heard of Brock Bowers, but he's pretty good.
Just a little bit.
He's all right. So that's a dude that I think, you've got two guys who are just sort of like festering in their cities and could use a change of scenery. I don't think Bryce Huff is going to be back, so we're just going to have to eat that and move away. But it would be a nice little, especially if Max Crosby goes elsewhere. Like they're going to need an edge rusher to replace him. So just something to keep an eye on with the Goddard situation. Could be an interesting tight end. And then from tackles, I like Javon Kinlaw. He's a free agent from the Jets. I really, I really like him from a tackle perspective. I think if you're looking at just a veteran again who is towards the end of his career but still effective and can come in and just eat snaps, Calais Campbell is, he's like 37, but he's still playing at a high level. And again, like another leader that they could certainly lean into. And I think here's one that just actually he was just released today. And he was drafted by Fangio and played for Hurt. Draymond Jones. And he's like 28 years old. He'd be a perfect fit. Fangio drafted him. He was just released today. So he's a guy that, I could certainly see the Eagles taking a look at. If I had my druthers here, Regz, and let's just put the Myles Garrett dream aside for a moment. But if I had my druthers, I would love for them to go into the draft with the guys we already talked about coming back and adding any combination of Banks and Jones. I would like to have those two specifically, and then a combination on the edge of Khalil Mack or Baron Browning. That I think that would be a nice ideal offseason. I think one thing I want to say to listeners, and Howie has said this, do not get like this is going to be different the way that this goes. Like the Eagles are not going to be, we're not going to see them all in on Monday, like a week from yesterday. It's just that's not where they're at right now. They're going to get some of these guys that I just mentioned who are, a second week of free agency. Like they're not the first. We're not going to have all the other, like it's not going to be Saquon. Could he make a trade? Absolutely. Absolutely. I still believe he will. But I think some of these types of players, the splashy guys aren't going to be what we see the Eagles do. And that's okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. How do you feel about those names?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I'm not as familiar with everybody as you are. This is one of those areas that I just lean into your judgment. I think that the bottom line is I think like your process and your premise is correct. There's nothing that you talked about that is like so against what I think they should do, or what I believe they will do. So
Yeah.
whatever the names come out as is almost irrelevant as long as they sort of follow what you're talking about, the process that you're talking about, and the way they go about it.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's just what it has to be. It's what it has to be this year.
We'll look more closely at the draft as we inch toward the end of March. Again, the draft's end of April, so we have plenty of time. And I think part of the reason why we wait on that is because it's important to see what they do in free agency. The Eagles don't draft need; they never have. They're going to draft based on best player available. Last year they leaned a little bit into need, but those were all Quinion and Cooper were the best players available when they picked.
Yeah.
So that that just will be the case, and it will be the case this year that when they pick best players available will likely be trench guys.
Yeah.
It's a weird draft. It's not a great draft overall, but when you consider positions, position wise, it defensive line is super strong.
Yeah.
So, but I want to go back to that initial point of they're going to need veterans
Yep.
signed before the draft. Now, I shouldn't say that because remember last year they went into the draft. We all thought they were going to take an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And then they signed Mekhi Becton literally 24 hours after the draft. So, there's a chance that they could do that and pause, which is fine. But I do think at least one of those two positions they'll have a veteran going into those two. I do believe that. Just one last thing here, and this is not about, it's kind of about the Eagles, but I just found it to be fun. Saquon extension today. The year anniversary of Zach Wheeler's extension.
Oh, I did see somebody tweet that. Yeah.
Both very similar situations, not from a length perspective, but what the Phillies signed Zach Wheeler for when he was a free agent was a freaking steal.
Yeah.
And what the Eagles got Saquon Barkley for value based on what he provided last year, freaking steal.
Yeah.
Both of them. Both well deserving of their extensions and the money that they earned. So congratulations to Saquon. And it's just cool that it's a year. Because I often say that Zach Wheeler is the best free agent signing in this industry. And now, I don't know that that's true anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure it can be.
If anything, it's 1A, right? Or 1B, whatever you say. So, hey man, that was fun. I can't wait till next week. I actually have to look at my my flight to Ohio because free agency, if I'm not mistaken, opens at 1. And I think I'm scheduled to fly at 1. So your boy might be moving his flight up in the morning so he can be in Ohio.
Oh, I was going to say, or your boy's paying for the Wi-Fi. That's for
sure. Sometimes they don't.
I know.
Flights, you don't get them. So I think I prefer leaving at like 6 in the morning and getting there
and being settled in and take a nap, and then you're ready to go.
Here's the thing. I probably won't be able to get into my room.
Right.
But I can go to a Panera and sit there and watch, our boys until it's time to go over to the hotel. But I was thinking about that today. I was like, I think I'm leaving when free agency starts. That's the worst feeling. Like I don't want to be in the air while, all these guys are coming off the board. So I'll keep you all updated.
All right.
I'll keep you all updated. So, all right, everyone. Hey, we appreciate you listening to 2 episodes this week. Here's what we'll say for next week. We will do our normal one show week next week. We'll decide when that is. Might be Thursday. I'm going to be in Ohio. I won't leave until Friday morning, so we might record on Thursday night. But if the Eagles do anything, you can look out for quick videos like I did today on Saquon, just reacting to it and giving you a chance to react with us. And then we'll talk more in depth on the show. I will say this: if a trade comes from Myles Garrett, we will probably
yes, we will jump on for that. Yes,
I don't think we will let that fester.
No, we're not going to let that slide.
That's going to have to happen.
Yep.
So we'll talk to you next week. Make sure you click subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, rate, do the thing. Head over to Twitter at the Phixated Pod, Facebook Phixated fan page, TikTok at the Phixated Pod. That is the one you want to be on right now. That's right. The one. It is just constant videos and reactions and content. So get on there and do it. Click the merchandise link in the show description, and we will be back next week. Until then, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another. We love each and every one of you. Go Howie.
There you go. Yeah, go Howie. See everybody.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here!
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.